With the change in legislation, how is that going to impact homeowners when they have property damage?
Well, I think it's already impacting homeowners. So we're seeing a lot more sales. We're seeing a lot of people who aren't maybe being made whole because of this legislation change. So people are trying to get out of home ownership in a lot of areas in Florida, especially on the West Coast.
Well, we're going to talk more about that and some other topics on this edition of the Loan Doctor podcast. I'm Rich Brandt, the Loan Doctor, and I'm with my guest, John Tolly of JT Law Firm, who does oh my God, I can't believe it.
Just say property damage insurance.
There you go. Thank you. Right? I know when people try to say how to describe what it is that I do, it's hard to do it in just a couple words. But we're going to learn more about that. And on this edition of the Loan Doctor podcast, as I said, I'm Rich Brandt, the Loan Doctor, with John Tully of the JT Law Firm. And welcome to our waiting room.
Well, thanks for having me, Rich. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being here. So let me ask you this. How did you get into the kind of insurance that protects homeowners when the insurance company doesn't pay them what they should?
Well, it was really kind of random. So I was a prosecutor in Broward County for 3 years. I pretty much got as high as you could get, except for I wasn't in homicide. And I needed some money. I was a young kid. And so I got approached by a defense firm for an insurance company. They represented like 9 different carriers. And I didn't really know anything about the field, but I knew a couple people at the office. So I took the job. And I really kind of fell in love with it. My dad and I had done a lot of like side work when I was a young kid. He's kind of a laborer. And so I had that background. And then this kind of dove into that background when you have law mixed with, hey, we got to rebuild this stuff.
Got it. Okay. When you getting back to you as a prosecutor, because I think that's kind of interesting too, just from that background, what kind of cases did you have?
So I started as a misdemeanor prosecutor. So you're talking about, DUIs, possession of marijuana. By the time I left the office in 3 years, I was in what we called 1020 life. So that was essentially a gang unit because most of the people that were being charged with the crimes, it dealt with anything with a gun. So if they pulled a gun, shot a gun, hit somebody, and did everything but kill them. So if the victim died, then it would go to homicide. If the victim lived, then it would stay with us. Okay. So we were flipping confidential informants and trying to take guns off the street and prosecuting gangs, and lives were getting threatened, and it was the craziest times.
This kind of got me just to thinking about, I have clients that are purchasing a house, and they are deciding whether or not to put the home in in an LLC or if they should keep it in their personal name. And a lot of times the thing that I recommend is based on how many other properties they have, because what they can do is they can really update their liability insurance, and it sort of protects them similar to what it would protect them in an LLC. And the reason kind of what you were saying to me kind of resonates is because one of the things that I would tell them is unless the neighbor cuts off somebody's head, that says, hey, the landlord told me to do it, you should have enough insurance to cover it. So right. I always find that story kind of interesting.
Well, so back then when I was a prosecutor, you didn't have to disclose where you lived. It was actually private. It would be confidential. But I like the idea of the LLC now because I don't remember who I prosecuted. I don't know if they still have a vendetta. So it would be nice to not be found for sure.
There you go. Is there any difference if a property is in an LLC as opposed to in a personal name when it comes to property insurance claims?
Most of the time not, because most of the time it's, like you're saying, it's one of your clients who they put it in an LLC, so they have control over the LLC, right? Sometimes it's a little bit difficult when you have a trust, if you don't have the trustee, or if, the named insured or the actual person who resides in the home is not the trustee, maybe it's an attorney or somebody else. That complicates issues because the check's going to be made payable to whoever the insured is, and in that case, it's going to be the trust or the LLC.
Okay. All right. What are the common types of property claims that you deal with?
Well, in Florida, it's pretty much roof, right? We have so many different storms. And then in different areas of Florida, like up in more the north area, central area, we have more hailstorms. Then obviously almost every year it feels like we have hurricanes now. So roofs are number one. But in South Florida, we were having a lot of pipes. Those have kind of dried up a little bit just because those cast iron pipes that were put in the 70s were breaking in. And those aren't as frequent as they used to be. But roofs in Florida are number one.
Do you find with the new building codes that they're building, a lot of properties that those properties are obviously don't have the same kind of damage claims and stuff like that?
It's interesting. So they just changed the building code a couple of years ago. So before the change, it used to be that if 25% of your roof or more had to be replaced within 1 year, whole roof has to be replaced.
Okay.
They went back and they clarified that and said if 25% of your roof is damaged, then you actually have to replace it. Which
Okay.
doesn't really make any sense because if you got to start ripping up the tiles or shingles, they're going to pull up the other tiles and shingles most of the time on these roofs. So I think that the change has kind of hurt us a little bit in terms of, being homeowners in the state of Florida. I think that what you're going to see is like a lot more roofs that maybe the whole thing should have been taken off. And instead now it's like a lot of spot repairs. And then when the next hurricane hits, you get these missiles that are the tiles flying around the neighborhood.
Do you find that you have fewer property claims on the houses that were built not just because they were newer, but because they were built stronger? Like if you had an old home and you've kind of put impact windows on it and put in a new roof, are you less likely to have a damage claim in the event that we did have a storm?
I got what you're saying. So it's interesting. I feel like the older homes, and I might get some heat for this, are the better homes, right?
Okay.
Like you're talking about these homes that were built maybe like in the mid 90s or later or earlier, I mean. Those homes seem to be built with real materials. And now all of the stuff that seems to be built now is kind of like paper mache houses. So we're seeing less claims, but I don't think it's related to the age of the home. We're seeing less claims because the legislature has absolutely destroyed homeowners' rights here in the state of Florida. But the new homes tend to kind of be more frail. So when there is damage, there's a lot more damage because it doesn't seem to really be holding up as well as these older homes that were, built with real solid wood or, these real materials.
Okay. Now, I know that one of the things that I encourage people to do when we're doing like a refinance of somebody who wants to make improvements, we want to make sure that they're doing those things to make sure that they're completely protected from the wind, right? The impact windows and doing all the windows, all the doors, doing the roof is all going to be beneficial, not only for them in having claims, but also in making their insurance a little bit cheaper.
I was actually going to ask because it seems like the older houses, I mean, if you got a house built in the 80s, most likely you've had to do renovation. So how many times are you seeing older houses that are already renovated when you guys are getting the mortgage and stuff like that? Is it usually something where impact windows or new roofs at least were being put on?
Yeah, it's probably 50-50 where the home needs to be improved or it has already been done.
Right.
Now you said the legislature is preventing people from being able to litigate. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So in December of 2022, so we're talking like 2 months after Hurricane Ian ravages the west coast of Florida, the Florida legislature gets together and they call a special session. And in the special session, they proposed a law to get rid of attorney's fees. Now, I know it's rich from an attorney saying, oh, wait a minute, you got rid of attorney's fees, but this is the basis behind it. So it used to be if you had an insurance claim and you had to sue your insurance company, the insurance company was responsible for paying you for your claim, less your deductible, plus my attorney's fees because you had to sue them. What it did was it kept the insurance companies honest, right? Because if they had your roof, which is only, let's say, $25,000, for a multi-million-dollar insurance company, $25,000 is nothing, right? But if they were worried about the fact that I was going to work that claim for 3 years, I was going to go to a jury trial, and a judge might award me $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 in attorney's fees, plus the costs that we have to put into the case, that was real incentive for them to settle your case while we were in litigation. That law was in place for 100 years. And in 2022, right before DeSantis declared himself for president, and right after Hurricane Ian, this legislature comes in and gets rid of it. They didn't do one amendment to the law whatsoever, and it got rid of statutory attorney's fees. Now, it held on for a little bit because it was somewhat retroactively applied. If your policy was in effect at the time before they did this law change, you could extend it to the next year.
Okay.
Now we're in a situation where Hurricane Milton just hit, and none of the policies have this retroactivity. And what we're seeing is homeowners are just pretty much giving up. They don't want to go forward.
Is there anything that can be done about that when the insurance company is egregious about not paying somebody's claim? Like, is there ever some kind of accountability? Because I get that. And I think that the converse argument is that sometimes insurance companies were getting sued and it was just easier to settle an illegitimate claim than risk having to pay attorneys lots of money. So I guess that would be the converse. But the fact is, you're right. We should be protecting the consumer. Is there anything when an insurance company just acts so egregiously bad? Is there anything that can be done in terms of the fees there, the attorney fees?
So it's interesting. So actually, it used to be easier before they changed the law because in addition to getting rid of attorney's fees, they changed bad faith. So bad faith was something that you used to be able to go after.
Okay.
Now, it used to be like, for instance, if you went to an appraisal and the appraisal award came back for higher than what the insurance company adjusted, you then could use that as a basis to sue for bad faith. Now, the only way in Florida to sue for bad faith is You have to sue the insurance company for the breach of contract like we're talking about. And it's kind of like a perfect storm. You have to have a client who's willing to risk it for the biscuit and go all the way to a jury trial and then prevail in the jury trial. And then after the judge signs the award, saying that the jury came back and found the insurance company liable, you've got to wait another 2 to 3 years for the insurance company to appeal the decision that the jury said, hey, the homeowner was right. And then you can finally sue them for bad faith. So there is a remedy, but it's basically been made impossible by the legislature. Okay. I mean, the chances of going to trial are less than 1% already. And then, so what they also did was they created what's called a proposal for settlement. So it's this document that you serve on the insurance company and the insurance company serves on us. Now, how that works is, let's say we have, $50,000 in damage. Well, we have to come down at least 25% off that number, because we have to recover at least 125% of whatever the value is of that paper once we go to a jury trial. The insurance company can do the same thing. And when the insurance company does it, and let's say you don't win at trial, right, then they can hit my client up for their attorney's fees. So now my client could be out of pocket $125,000, $150,000 in attorney's fees. So most clients are very hesitant to go to trial because the risk for, let's say, a $25,000 roof is paying attorney's fees for an insurance company that has millions of dollars.
So what would your suggestion be to a homeowner who's got damage, who doesn't feel like their insurance company did the right thing, and is saying, I give up, it's just too hard?
Well, I would say don't give up. Call a lawyer. If you want to call me, you can call me. But have them review the case, because a lot of times you have to understand that they're a business, and I don't fault them for it. And I'll say there's bad actors on our side, there's bad actors on their side. But a lot of times as a business, your bottom line is the key, right? So a lot of these companies have worked out, hey, if we deny a certain number of claims, a certain percentage of people will just give up right away. And then we'll save that money from them giving up. So if you don't give up and you push through, and maybe you have to hire an attorney, you have to give a percentage of your claim away. 100% of or 0% of a watermelon is better than 100% of a grape, right? So, right. There's usually a chance where we get a denied claim and we can get overturned. I would say most of our claims now are denied that come in. They denied 40% of Hurricane Milton claims. Wow. So, it's not doom and gloom if you get a denial.
Okay. Why do you think it's so difficult for the insurance company to actually pay the right amount? I mean, that's what insurance is all about, is making the homeowner who suffered damage whole. Why is it so difficult to get them to do that?
Well, I think it's a bunch of different factors. I mean, I used to work for insurance companies, and sure, there is fraud, right? And you want to make sure that you're not paying out fraudulent claims. I think the problem is you experience that at a certain level so many times that now you question whether or not everybody's committing fraud, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing with it is they're a business. So if, we can settle a case and we value it at $25,000, and let's say the homeowner values it at $10,000, if we somehow get them to take a settlement of $10,000, even though we valued it at $25,000, the business does better. So they're also in the business of, kind of lowballing the offers and seeing if you'll accept it.
Ron, I wonder if are there any countries that have insurance carriers that are not for profit?
I think that's an oxymoron, honestly. We have a lot of issues in Florida, really, honestly, from foreign insurance companies. Right. So the basis for that is that our insurance companies are reinsured. Now, for whatever reason is, and I don't know what it is, but we don't have a lot of reinsurance companies in America. Right. So usually, and you know this from what you do on a daily basis. Sure. So the reinsurance companies are in Germany, or they're in England, Lloyd's of London or Zurich, and what they charge for their premiums for these insurance companies to be insured directly affects our premiums here in Florida. Right. And obviously those go up because they view the state as such a risk with, hurricanes and other storms.
Sure. Now, what's the biggest mistake that you see people who have damage make when they're dealing with the insurance company?
Trying to handle it by themselves. So like, if I need a mortgage, maybe I could figure it out, but I'm going to go to the loan doctor because that's not my profession, right? What they do immediately when you make a claim, and they being the insurance company, is they hire a licensed adjuster right away called a desk adjuster. That person is assigned, and then they assign a licensed adjuster called a field adjuster. They're professionals. Their job is to adjust this claim and act obviously in the best interests of the insurance company. A lot of people think that they can handle it because they don't want to pay a percentage to a public adjuster or an attorney. And what ends up happening is they put their foot in their mouth, and maybe they say something they didn't mean to say. So we get this all the time. Yeah, the water came flooding in. Oh, well, flood's excluded under your HO3 policy. Well, what they meant by that was water came flooding in through the roof or came flooding in through the window, but they just cut the sentence off to say flood, and now you got a denial saying we don't cover flood damage, when really you were talking about wind-driven rain through your roof or your ceiling or through your window, which is covered under your policy.
Okay. Now, how does what you do differentiate from a public adjuster?
So I can do everything a public adjuster can do, and then I can file a lawsuit if necessary.
Okay.
So that's really the biggest difference between us. We can all adjust the claims. I mean, they're a great benefit and a great help, and we love working with public adjusters because they get to be boots on the ground. They get to photograph the evidence. They also know how to work the estimating programs that the insurance company expects to see, which is called Xactimate. The only thing that separates us is that I can eventually file a lawsuit if necessary.
Okay. All right. Nice. Now, walk us through what happens when a homeowner has damage and they need to file a claim. Like, what does that look like from your perspective?
Do you ever get any calls or no? Because usually, I think it's the agents that get calls usually when they get claims.
Yeah, that's a good question. I have gotten sometimes I've gotten people to call me and say, hey, we have a problem or and that kind of stuff. It does happen on occasion.
So realistically, once they have damage, in Florida, if you don't notify the insurance company within a reasonable amount of time that you have damage, that you knew you had a claim, you can actually be denied. It's called prompt notice.
Okay.
And the standard essentially is when would a reasonable person notified their insurance company? So like we run into this a lot where, maybe after Hurricane Milton, somebody went outside and they picked up a bunch of shingles off the ground and they just threw them in the corner and they went about their life. And then like 3 months later, a roofer was in the area replacing a roof and they're like, hey, come up and, look at my roof. And they're going, oh my God, you have 25 missing shingles up here. Well, the problem is you waited 3 months and your reasonable person should have known you had a problem with the roof when you had 30 shingles on the ground, right? So they got to make the claim right away. Now, I would recommend hiring a professional to make the claim so you don't make the same mistakes we were just talking about. But the claim has to be called in immediately. That's your first step. That's the most important thing. A lot of claims lead to denials because of waiting too long.
Okay. Is there anything that you would recommend somebody do like prior to, like, let's say hurricane season or something like that they could do to help them go through that claim process in the event that they ever had damage?
Yeah. So we used to have this phrase in criminal, and it was that, when I was doing a little bit of criminal defense when I first started the firm, and the phrase was that you could beat the time, but you couldn't beat the ride, right?
Okay.
So you might be going to jail that day and you're going to have to be in that call, but we might be able to beat the time later on. Okay. The same thing is true with these insurance companies in terms of you might not beat the initial denial, but maybe you can eventually get the claim paid, right?
Okay.
So what I recommend 100% for Florida homeowners is, and I think like Phil in our B&I group does this, but the home inspection companies usually offer a service that they'll come out to you before hurricane season and they'll photograph and document everything. Okay. Then you have leading up to hurricane season what your house looked like before a hurricane hit. If we have that, it's like, I guess like maybe a doctor's report, right? The loan doctor. Right. So we have this report, and then even if the insurance company denies it, because your most common denial is pre-existing damage, right? Or that, that this was long-term wear and tear is their other most common denial. But if I have a photo report from 2 months before the hurricane hit showing that there was no cracked tiles, there was no interior leaks, that the house was in good shape, it makes it really hard for them to deny that claim.
Could any of that be manipulated with AI?
Well, actually, funny enough, what's crazy is I was just presenting at FAPIA, and I was talking to a public adjuster there, and he said, you got to tell people to stop using their iPhone. So I guess with the new integration of iPhone, when they take photos, like if we have like, something on our face, it will actually, the AI will automatically clean it up for you. It will clean up blemishes. What they found was these people are taking photos of cracked tiles on the roof. It's taking out the crack, and then now you don't see it. So it is really interesting. The AI is becoming a problem that we didn't really anticipate, right? Where it's correcting damage that you're trying to document so you can, show the claim is legitimate.
Right. That would be kind of interesting if I'm trying to take pre-existing pictures to show that I don't have cracks, and I do have cracks, but all my pictures are perfectly clean. Right. How does the insurance company deal with that?
This was the problem where the PAs were taking photos of damaged stuff post-hurricane.
Right.
And then, they're up there taking 100 photos, right? They're photographing. So nobody's going back and looking at it, seeing that this AI is cleaning up those cracks that they're observing. So they submit it to the insurance company going, look at this roof, it's smoked. And their insurance company is going, the roof looks great, and it's no one's telling a lie. It's just this AI was doctoring it up, I guess. And they weren't realizing it.
Now, when somebody has they have damage, right? They call you, as they should, to take care of it. What's that process like? How long does that process take, typically?
It's not fast. So I tell clients all the time, we don't deal with minutes and hours, we deal with months and years, right?
Okay.
So, and part of that is that there's so many things now in the policy that you have to do before you can even file a lawsuit. And the idea is to get you frustrated. Okay. So what we do at the firm, I've tried 56 jury trials and we've brought cases all the way to jury trial. I was just in a jury trial a couple of weeks ago. So because we've seen it all the way at the end, we try to preempt everything at the beginning. So we take a little bit longer in our pre-suit process, but what we're doing with that is we're trying to make sure that when we file the lawsuit, if they had maybe 5 arguments that they could make against us, we cut it down to 2 or 3, right? Or those 2 or 3 that are left, we have so much evidence that we produced before we filed the lawsuit that they have a difficult time justifying the other 2. So, a claim can take anywhere from a month. We've settled cases as quick as, 7 days. Or, one of the trials we tried was a 3-year-old jury trial. So, claims can take a really long time. Usually with our firm, because they know we try cases and because we prepare the case from the beginning, we're settling the cases within 3 to 6 months after we file the lawsuit.
And is there an initial expense for the homeowner?
No, we front all the costs for the homeowner. So if somebody signed up with us, we work on a contingency fee. So they don't pay us anything out of pocket. We get a percentage of whatever we recover for the from the insurance company. In addition to that, I advance all the costs. So, if an engineer has to go out and sends me a $4,000 invoice, I pay it up front and then it's reimbursed through the recovery.
Now, you mentioned litigation and that you've done a lot of litigation in your time in protecting the homeowner. Do all people that do what you do litigate as well? Is that a common thing?
So it's not. It was really funny because if you watch Law and Order and Suits and all this stuff, every attorney's in the courtroom, every attorney's trying a jury trial. The fact of the matter is 1% of cases go to jury trial and about 1% of Florida law firms actually go to jury trial.
Okay.
So we're one of the few firms that actually takes our cases to trial. And we do get approached by other firms that don't, that say, hey, look, I've got this case in a couple months. It's going to go to trial. Can we hire you to try the case for us? So we'll do that as well because it is a skill set that a lot of people don't have.
Now, does that make it more expensive for the homeowner if they were to go to somebody that doesn't have this experience? They end up going to have to go to trial, and now they have to pay you as well. Is there going to be an increase in their fee?
Oh, unfortunately, it does because number one, I'm probably not going to try that case without at least some cash, off of it. So usually the other law firm will have to advance some money, and then we maybe can offset it as long as we win with whatever we recover. But if it's a case that I didn't bring into my firm, I'm not willing to kind of do charity work and take it on without some type of guarantee where at least I can cover my time, right? Because usually a jury trial is 4 to 5 days in trial.
It's funny because I think that part is really important when, and I deal with this a lot, is that where my expertise lies in when you might have a problem, when there's something about your financial puzzle that might be a little weird, right? And you don't necessarily know when that's going to happen. And so you could go to like an internet lender where they have guys who are really good at taking your application, but not so much the other stuff. Or you can go to somebody like me, and the internet lenders are okay unless you have a hiccup, right? And so, do you want to go start with them, have a hiccup, and then end up with me, or just start at the right place? And I'm thinking the same thing for people. You don't know, you might end up in a jury trial. Why not just go right to the source so that you're protected? For that peace of mind.
It's Russian roulette, right? Like that's what I always say about jury trials is when we get the case in the beginning, we don't know if that's the case that ultimately we go to trial on in 2 years.
Right.
And I couldn't agree with you more with what you were saying about what you do is you don't want to go to a law firm or a mortgage lender that is kind of just processing paperwork. You want them to know your case or know your application and then work your facts with whatever you can to process the mortgage or to process the claim and get it paid out as quickly as possible. Because if it's a firm that you're just kind of checking boxes and you're not really a litigation firm, your case is going to last 2 years and it probably could have settled in 6 months. Just like I'm sure you have people coming to you where they had this great house and maybe the deal fell through, and had they hired you from the beginning, they'd have that dream house they wanted, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm thinking too that shortening that life cycle makes a difference when you're dealing with an insurance company that knows they might get sued.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
got to help probably accelerate the settlement. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah. So, they definitely have valuations of law firms and they know which law firms, will actually file a lawsuit. And look, a lot of law firms might still file lawsuits. It doesn't mean that they're going to go all the way to jury trial. And then they have, a list of which law firms actually go to jury trial.
Got it.
And I always say to my firm, these cases are not like fine wine. They do not get better with age. So we want those cases to get in and settle as quickly as possible because we don't want the client to get frustrated and want to give up and take pennies on the dollar. And so, it definitely is a factor when they see that we're on the case. They're going to know if we say, hey, we're going to trial, we mean we're going to trial.
Now, one of the things that you said is that this is a marathon, not a sprint, right? In terms of getting settlements and stuff. If somebody, let's say you have a homeowner, and this is where I can kind of help with some people. If they have property damage, their insurance company isn't paying, but they still need to get that stuff fixed, and they don't have the money. If they were to pull out, take some of the equity out of their home to refinance to make those improvements and fix everything, does that take away from their ability to collect on the insurance company?
No. So if you do repairs, like we're talking about, if you're doing a repair in the middle of an insurance claim.
If I'm doing right, correct, right.
Yeah. So, it doesn't, obviously it limits your damage, and you'll probably only get about 75% maximum of what you actually paid because we have to serve that proposal for settlement, which is usually 25% less. So it hurts the homeowner from that standpoint. They'll never be made whole, but it does give us the opportunity, if we have to go in front of a jury, to say, we're not, estimating this. These are true hard costs, and my clients had to pull money out of their house, probably take a higher interest rate, because most of these houses lately that we're dealing with are ones that were sold during the pandemic with the really low interest rates.
Sure. And
so there is a factor, and we can also ask for kind of, those interest issues. We've had clients finance roofs, and then ask for the interest that they're paying on the loan, and then get that in the jury trial.
Oh, okay, right. That's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So you could get some of the extra costs that you're incurring because you had to fix this. Now,
but most likely what's going to happen is you're going to have to serve that proposal for settlement. We're going to have to knock 25% off of it, and they'll accept it because they know that they have the extra 25% liability on the table.
Now, are there repairs? Is there a difference in like necessary repairs? Like if you had a hole in your roof, the roof's got to be fixed, right?
Right.
Is there a difference in making necessary repairs as opposed to other repairs that you could sort of live with, but until you get a settlement? Is there any difference there in terms of your rights as the homeowner to make sure that the insurance company is still going to pay you for it?
So, there's a lot of times in suit where, let's say they're coming up on they got maybe canceled. They're needing to come up with a new insurance company. So they replace the roof on their own, but maybe they have interior damage. So they don't actually do the interior damage. As long as my client tells me they're going to do it, we provide enough notice to the insurance company to let them know that, hey, if you want to come out and take any more photos or inspect this roof, it's going to be replaced in 60 days. Let us know. So it could be a disaster if they just do it by themselves and we don't give the opportunity for the insurance company to view the property at least one more time. But most of the time, the clients know to contact me. We let them know, and they can do some of the repairs waiting for the other stuff to get paid as well.
Okay, that's a key element that I didn't even realize is that, if somebody is going to refinance because they experienced some damage, I'm going to make sure that they notify their insurance company, notify you or whoever they might be using if they're not using you, which would be a big mistake. But make sure that they actually give the insurance company the heads up, but they can still do the work once they give notice.
So the insurance company will call it like spoliation of evidence. So they'll say, hey, look, even if they inspected the house 4 times before this, they'll say, you didn't give us the opportunity to do it. Now we're telling you that we're prejudiced and we're denying the claim for that reason. And then that slows the case down even more. So it's always better. Like we have a practice in our firm that when the client notifies us, hey, we're going to do some work, I send the insurance company what's called a notice of intent to rebuild. And then I tell them in the letter that they're going to have 30 days to come out and inspect the property. And if they don't respond or don't do it, then they're waiving any argument that they were prejudiced.
Now, I know Citizens Insurance and maybe other carriers have this thing in their policy that says something like, and I apologize if it's not verbatim, but it's something like they're going to give you either $10,000 or if you use their provider list, they'll do whatever the necessary repairs are that they deem fit.
Yeah, so they have a managed repair program.
That's it.
Usually it's Citizens only offers you the kind of alternative.
Okay.
A lot of the other carriers have that you have no choice.
That it's managed care.
Correct. That if they find coverage that they can invoke the R option is what they call it, right. And then they can send their contractors out there to do the work. And clients haven't had a great experience with those contractors because they're obviously bidding for the insurance company's work because it's millions of dollars of work. So usually they're underbidding the projects, right?
Underbidding the projects, I would imagine, doing inferior work, doing it in with inferior supplies or material,
Or
like
not
kind
even
of.
fulfilling the scope that the insurance company even paid for.
Oh wow!
That's one we've seen before.
So how do you handle that and protect the homeowner in that situation?
There's a couple different ways to go about it. So each policy is different. So it delineates a timeline that they have the opportunity to do that. Some are 30 days after the initial inspection. Some are 60 days after they receive your sworn proof of loss. So we review the policy and see if that the insurance company actually complied with the policy to start with. If they didn't, then usually we can get them out of it. If they did, then what we essentially tell the clients is let them do the repairs because you have to, otherwise they'll sue you, which insurance companies have sued the homeowners for this.
Right.
And then let's have a contractor go out and evaluate the repairs. And if they're good, you're good. Don't worry about it. We'll cancel our agreement. You don't owe us anything. But if there's problems with it, then we'll explore having to file a lawsuit against the insurance company and the contractor.
Now, I ended up having to have an insurance claim back in 2022. I had a flood this was due to a contractor leaving, like disconnecting all the plumbing and everything. We were remodeling a house, and the contractor removed all the toilets, the cabinets, and everything like that, and then put all the debris in the garage. And then the next day, he came in. His crew came in, they took the stuff in the garage and they threw it in the dumpster that wasn't on the property until the following Monday. And I guess when they were leaving, they turned the water on outside to maybe clean their hands or whatever. And then instead of turning the main water off, they turned only the spigot and it flooded the whole house. Real big disaster. It took a while, but the reason that I'm bringing it up with you is one of the things that was really interesting that happened is I did the managed repair program, and the managed repair company produced an affidavit that said the work was complete a year and a half before they even finished the work.
Oh, wow.
We didn't even have the permits.
That's insane.
And they said that the work was already complete. So people really have to sort of be aware when they're using that managed care program. Look at the documents you're signing, because they might have you sign a document that says they're done with the work, even though they haven't started.
Right. Yeah, no. I tell people all the time, if you're getting documents from a company, an insurance company, whatever it is, you better read it twice and sign it once, right?
Read it twice or give it to you.
Yeah, or give it to me, right? I mean, my wife does personal injury, and she actually got a call the other day where they signed a release. The client signed a release. They sent them like a $2,000 check. And the client signed a release with the insurance company because they didn't read what it said. So my wife couldn't help them out because they already released the insurance company for $2,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
no, that's crazy. So tell me a story that really that resonates with you, where a homeowner was in trouble and because of you were able to make them whole.
This, I don't think I'll ever forget her. So I won't say her name or the insurance company or anything, but
what's it rhyme with? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we got a call after Hurricane Ian, West Coast. It was from like a friend of a friend, and they were like, look, we have this person. She's a new widow. Like her husband had just passed away. She had legal custody over her 2 grandchildren. She had 2 dogs and 2 cats. And Hurricane Ian came right over her house and pretty much ripped off the roof. Like you could sit in her bed and you could see the sky. And she ended up taking out all the savings she had and buying like an RV and putting it on the driveway because she couldn't have the kids in the house, right? And she had this insurance company that had the managed repair program, and they invoked it. And they invoked it properly, honestly. But they told her that they couldn't get out to the house for another 12 months. Like they could not perform repairs because, Ian was so devastating. And so realistically, when we looked at the case, we knew we really didn't have a good argument because they had invoked it properly. And there was no case law on point that they had a certain time to do the repairs in. But me and my partner, Josh, we couldn't let it go because we felt so bad for this woman that we literally took the case and we filed the suit and we're like, we'll figure it out. And ultimately, we were able to convince them to pay the claim instead of keep this managed repair program with really no legal precedent. It wasn't like we had a bunch of case law, but we just felt like we had to do what was right by her. And, I'm still grateful she gave us the opportunity, and I'm still so happy we could get that done for her.
That's funny that again, you talk about that the issue that I was having with my claim. My repair process took 3.5 years, and I ended up having to hire a contractor did it and just gave the insurance company receipts because the managed care company didn't do the work
Right.
that they claimed to do. They didn't do any of it and stuff like that. I think that I got very, very lucky in that. But it was just an extraordinary circumstance. And when I found out that there isn't anything in the legislation that says they have some kind of like what it's not, it doesn't even say a reasonable time.
Nope. Nope.
And
And
it
you're
should.
honestly lucky that you got those invoices paid.
Yeah.
We've had clients come to us who were sued by their insurance companies because they did the work, even though there was this managed repair program, and the insurance company was trying to get their premiums or trying to get money back because they were saying my client breached the contract by having somebody else do it. But you took a year to even get somebody out there,
Right.
So it's crazy. It is wild.
Now we've been talking for the last half hour or so about like residential properties, single family homes, duplexes, condos, townhouses, but you also do commercial.
Oh yeah, we do a lot of commercial.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. So we've done 40 building, hundreds of units with we're talking about with like maybe the community center and the pool. We've done a bunch of hotels. So we do a bunch of these commercial claims all throughout the state.
Okay. Now, do the commercial claims take longer because there's more money involved and all that kind of stuff, engineering reports?
It's funny because like you'll have an adjuster on a case and you'll be arguing with them over like $5,000, and then you'll get a commercial claim with them, and they're paying $500,000 like it's no problem. It's more of a fight sometimes for these $5,000 payments than it is for them maybe issuing an advance for $250,000. So it's hit or miss. What's interesting about the commercial claims in Florida is typically they're with a bunch of insurance providers that require you to file a lawsuit in the state of New York. So you could have, like, for instance, the last case we just settled, hotel here in Florida, hit by a hurricane, venue clause, New York City. So luckily with our firm, I'm licensed in New York, so I can handle it all in-house. I don't have to refer it to another attorney. But it is really funny trying to argue a hurricane claim in New York, because not a lot of New Yorkers really have dealt with hurricanes besides Sandy, obviously.
Now, I know you're in the market to buy a house.
I am.
When you eventually settle and you find the house that you love, you get the insurance, how long is it going to take you to read that policy?
Well, it's funny. First off, I'll be using the loan doctor, obviously, so as everybody should when they're buying a house. And, I'm sure I'm going to get a fantastic rate and everything we need. I will say that when I was a prosecutor, I had bought my first house, and I basically just took the lowest premium, whatever my agent told me. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good, because I was making no money, right? And now it's changed because I have the experience of seeing what exclusions, really hurt people and all of that. So I will read the entire policy and make sure that, the coverage is there that we need it. Because what we're seeing a lot now is the deductibles are higher than ever, right? And then you're seeing a lot of these 1% matching or undamaged matching provisions. So basically what that says is, like, you could have a room, let's say you put this beautiful wood paneling up in your house, and only one panel is actually damaged, right? But you have this all throughout your house, and in order to match the rest of the house, it's no longer in production. So you have to redo the whole house. Well, they're going to limit you to 1% of your coverage A. Usually it's like $4,000 or $5,000, right? So maybe one panel costs $4,000. Well, you've got $35,000 in panels you need to replace. The insurance company doesn't have to pay it, and nor should they, because you signed the policy with that exclusion. So it's really important checking those exclusions. And usually your agent will give you a deck page. Ask them for the full policy.
I do think I have a number of clients who go through that insurance process. I mean, a lot of people go through this process just in life in looking for the thing that is the least expensive, not realizing that there's value in sometimes an extra cost or something like that.
I just had
the sacrifice.
I just had a client. She sends me her estimates, $36,000 or $33,000 to replace the roof. So I get her policy from the insurance company, and obviously she was in that process of just whatever's the cheapest policy. $33,000 estimate to replace the roof. Her deductible is $36,000. So she'll never get a new roof under that policy because it will always fall under deductible.
Right.
So it's a useless policy, really. So I agree with you 100% that, although it might be the cheapest option now, it turns out to be the most expensive option later, because she's coming out of pocket $33,000 to replace that roof, and she probably saved a couple $100 on her policy.
Now, So, one of the things that happens with policies is some policies include something called replacement cost coverage, right? And then or actual cost. Other than price, is there ever is there ever somebody who might be in a circumstance where actual cost actually makes sense other than price?
So a lot of times, if you maybe can't pay the house off, so you have a mortgage, but you
Mhm.
can pretty much self-insure, it
Yeah.
might make sense for you. We're seeing it a lot now in Florida. So with the roofing claims, you'll have an actual cash value schedule.
Okay.
So this will be only for roofing. So it will literally be this chart in the back of your policy, and it will go through the years, right? One through whatever they put. Maybe I think at the end always says like over 30 years.
Right.
And then it reduces the value of your roof using actual cash value. So like let's say
Good.
in this last case I had, it was a 20-year-old roof. Well, it reduced the value of the roof by 50%. So if they went out there to a roofer, the roofer said, hey, you've got a $30,000 roof, the insurance company would not only owe $15,000, but they'd actually owe less than that because it was actual cash value only,
Okay.
which is your roof depreciated, right?
Right,
That's
right.
what actual cash value is. I always recommend clients to get RCV, replacement
Right.
cost value policies, and to avoid the roof schedules.
I think one of the things that's happening now and this is really for people who are buying condominiums, a lot of times we're seeing more condo insurance or condo boards put the actual cost value on the roof as opposed to replacement cost to try to keep the premium down. And the reason I kind of bring it up now is just because even though you might have an actual cash value policy, it doesn't necessarily make the condo a bad investment. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times what they're doing is they've already saved money for the roof anyway, right?
Right,
So
right.
they know the roof is going to go. They've been budgeting for the roof for years. Why pay the replacement costs if there's damage if they know they're just going to replace it anyway?
Well, and that's my point, right? Is that they're somewhat self-insured. So
Right.
they've got this money over here that in
Mhm.
the event that they have a loss, that's the only time it makes sense is if you do have cash that you could kind of make
Right.
up for that price difference. Because if you don't get hit by a hurricane like we haven't on the East Coast for years and years and years,
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
saved thousands. And then in this case, HOAs, hundreds of thousands of dollars in premiums.
Yeah, why haven't we been hit by a hurricane? What's going on with
Well,
that?
the Gulf is just always super, super hot. And that's where we get the majority of that fires up and then it
Yeah.
hits on the West Coast. The Atlantic seems to be kind of cooling down a little bit. I was
Yeah.
just at this event with the meteorologist. He was really cool. He went through everything. So it's just hit or miss, I guess.
All right. So when you're not protecting homeowners, what is it that you like to do in your spare time?
This is gonna sound really corny, but I love to hang out with my kids. I really enjoyed
kids.
spending time with them. They're 3 and they're 1 and they're fun. And I know I'm not gonna have this time forever. So usually we're out on the weekends with the kids trying to do something cool.
Nice. Don't you travel a lot too?
We do travel a lot too. We just got back from Greece, Azerbaijan, and Vienna. So we like to take the kids too, which the 12-hour flight from we ended up having a layover in Poland back to America with my daughter was it was a bit of a rough flight for sure, to say the least. She
Oh,
was
yeah.
wide awake the whole time. And you're a big traveler as well. So
I'm definitely a big traveler.
where's the
Yeah.
next trip for you?
Well, so I could tell you my next trip. I'll give you my next 3 months.
Okay.
So I'm going. So in November, California.
Okay.
We're gonna in December, Park City.
Oh wow.
In January, the Dominican Republic,
Okay, cool.
and in February, Antarctica.
Oh, if you tell Monica you're going to Antarctica, you might get an extra
already told her.
person on the
Yeah.
trip. Yeah.
Yeah, I told her. In fact, I suggested that she room with us because it would cut my cost in half.
Well, she's trying to convince me to go, and I'm like, we have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. We're not going to Antarctica with them specifically,
Right.
and I don't know if we can convince the grandparents to watch them for a trip to Antarctica. So we'll see.
Well, if you guys want to go, I think I can convince my mother to watch your kids.
Beth is the best. So.
Okay. So So before we go, if
Okay.
a homeowner has damage right now, they've got damage, they're thinking they don't know what to do. What's the advice that you would give them right this moment?
You have to call. I know I said this before, but you have to call the claimant right away. And
Okay.
I would really advise not calling it in by yourself. But again, if you know you have damage, that is going to hurt you so bad if we have to go to a lawsuit. The case could be dismissed. So number one thing is you need to call the claim in. You need to take plenty of photographs. And if you have active damage that's damaging the property further, like if it's a leak and just more water is coming in, you got to mitigate right away. So you have a duty under your policy to mitigate. But before you mitigate, during mitigation and after mitigation, you have to document it with photographs so the insurance company can't say, hey, wait a minute, we didn't see what it looked like before you fixed it.
No, that's great, 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 great advice. I want to thank you for
Thank
being
you
on
for
the Home
having
Doctor
me.
podcast. And once again, thank you for being in our waiting room to everybody who listened.